course, Mike DeCourcy joins us every week from the Sporting News. He's a legend. You see him on Fox Sports, Big Ten Network doing hoops. He comes on here and rages about everything, soccer, you name it. So, Mike, the conferences are changing again. Are you buying that Gonzaga's going? Are you buying the Utah State stories? Some people are refuting it. Some people say it's legit. Where do you think all these teams end up when it's all said and done?
Well, there's also a lawsuit that was filed today by the Pac-12 against the penalty fees that would be due the Mountain West for taking certain members of their league. So it really has become wild in the last week. What's interesting to me is that there's this level of interest, even though we're talking about the zombie Pac-12 and the Mountain West and the American Conference, leagues that don't usually get that much attention. So maybe a little bit of expansion talk is good for them because it puts their product in the spotlight some. I'm not sure where the Pac-12 ends up at this point. I didn't like their strategy at all for what they did. I thought that, honestly, that what the Pac-12 and Mountain West should have done was cooperate, put together a league that added Oregon State and Washington State to the existing Mountain West, and then just decide which is a better brand. Mountain West is a pretty cool name. Pac-12 is a really powerful name that's been around for a long time. Decide which is a better brand and go from there. Instead, they decided to fight each other. And I don't think that the strategy of the reanimated Pac-12 has been good. They did not have a good handle on their attempt to raid the American Conference. And look, first of all, if you go after Tulane, Scott, I mean, you do not know what you're doing. You don't want to get Tulane. Tulane's a wonderful university, and New Orleans is a cool city. But you don't want that athletic program. Even though the football program has gotten better competitively on the field, it's still not a prime program. Its history is so up and so down. It's not one that's been consistent. The addition of Tulane to the Big East back in 2013, I believe it was what precipitated the basketball school saying, the heck with this. We're out of here. We're going somewhere else and doing our own thing. So I didn't like the fact that the Pac-12 did that. And then to get rejected by Tulane, Memphis, and USF shows they really didn't have a good plan. They should have been all in on Vegas, which offers so much in terms of the possibility of what the Rebels could become, what they have been many times in basketball. And hey, Scott, the worst case scenario, if you add Vegas, what is it? The worst case scenario is your team goes on the road, gets a W, and all your fans get to go to Vegas. How do you not want them in your league?
Are they staying in the Mountain West? That's their plan. And do you think that I talked about this earlier yesterday about St. Mary's? Why are they being left out? Because they're pretty good at hoops too.
Well, it comes down to the fact that in the case of St. Mary's, they have a magnificent basketball program, but not one that is believed to have endurance, and it doesn't have great national appeal. It has had great success nationally, but it's not like a lot of people are turning on the television when St. Mary's is there, unless they're playing Gonzaga, which is a brand that draws people to the television set and is why there is some interest in the Pac-12 in adding them as a basketball member. I'm not sure where Vegas goes because they were pretty much firm on staying in the Mountain West when they weren't initially invited by the Pac-12. And then the idea that Utah State might cross the line there and go to the Pac-12 sort of destabilized Vegas's interest in remaining in the Mountain West. So we don't know where it's going to end up at this point. As you said, even Utah State's interest in the Pac-12 now seems to be dubious. I just think that the Pac-12 strategy here was really poor. And why should we be surprised now? Because whoever's been in charge, the Pac-12 in the last 15 years has made very few good moves, from hiring Larry Scott to letting him run things as he did, to then when he departed, to then asking for a king's ransom for their television rights and seeing a reasonable contract go to the Big 12 instead that could have belonged to the Pac-12. They haven't. When's the last time they made a good move? When they decided they wanted UCLA, maybe? Was that the last time?
But I mean, do you really? I never thought it should have, broken up. I seriously, I thought it was a great conference. Maybe they had bad decision, bad people running it. Who knows? I never thought it should have ended. And I think that they're trying to save it is a good thing. And I loved it. You didn't like watching those basketball games and the West Coast football games?
I really was rooting hard for the Pac-12 to remain together. I understood why USC and UCLA left with the opportunity they had to make the money they would make and to compete at the level that the Big Ten will compete with the SEC, et cetera. I understood that. After that, I was hopeful that the Pac-12 would survive. But, Scott, they did it to themselves. At that point, their contract was worth X number of dollars, and they asked for X plus, and they stood firm at X plus, and it backfired on them because the ESPN said, okay, we'll just go sign up the Big 12 instead, and you guys can do whatever you want to do. And then there was no one left to bid for them. At that point, Fox wasn't interested, and there were only so many players in this market. The only other player at that point was Apple, which meant going entirely online, and the money would have been sufficient, but they felt skeptical about whether they'd be able to recruit in an entirely online world, an entirely streaming world, and so they balked at that. And then before long, you saw Oregon and Washington peel off to the Big Ten, and then it was pretty much over.
When you saw USC go to Michigan, play them in, the Big House, did you think that, them and UCLA and these, Washingtons and Oregons going there in the end was a good idea? It was such a great game, and the future looks bright with those types of games. It was such a heavyweight tilt. It could have been a national championship. You remember my whole life you'd watch Michigan play USC in the Rose Bowl, but never in this setting in a Big Ten game.
I think that it's been very good for the conferences that have expanded and survived. I think it's been very good for the viewers. And I think there's been much too much histrionics about the travel for the non-revenue sports. And I pointed out in a column that I wrote last week about why this is good or can be good. The Pitt volleyball team, I live in Pittsburgh. Pitt's volleyball team is number one in the country. They have yet to lose a set. I think they are 9-0 at this point. They have won 27 consecutive sets. That's how good they are. They began their season by going to Oregon and playing 2 matches out there. Then, after coming home for 1, then they went on the road to Southern California and played 3 matches out there. All of them were non-league matches. None of them were mandatory. They chose to do it. Why? Because it would make them better. Fine by me. Whatever makes you better and whatever you feel comfortable doing, fine. But at no point did Pitt say, we can't go to the coast twice in the first 3 weeks of the season. It'll tire our players out. No, they went for it. They played great. As I mentioned, they played perfectly. And now they're in the situation that they are joining the ACC competition soon. And they'll play some more regional opponents, but also at some point, they'll probably have to play Stanford and Cal home or away. And so somebody's going to have to travel. That's the way it is now. And I think that the concern about the non-revenue travel, as long as it can be afforded, and it certainly can be afforded at the Big Ten and SEC level, I don't see any problem at all.
Who do you like in the Georgia-Bama game Saturday in Tuscaloosa?
I think the Tide's going to shock them.
Really?
I think Kalen DeBoer is a magnificent coach. Jalen Milroe has played great. And Georgia, man, we saw them against Kentucky. Did not look like they were vintage Georgia. So we'll see how it goes. But I favor the Tide.